Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live session, From Compliance to Confidence, Governance as the Foundation of Trust, Talent, and Sustainable Growth. I'm Rita Choi, founder of Asia HRM, and I'm delighted to be your moderator. In today's rapidly evolving world of work, good governance is no longer just about compliance. It's about building trust, protecting reputation, and creating organizations where people and performance thrive. As AI reshapes how we hire, evaluate, and manage people, and as global talent moves across borders, governance has become a boardroom priority. It's no longer a back office function, it's a strategic capability. Today, we'll explore how governance can move beyond ticking boxes to being a true driver of resilience, accountability, and sustainable growth. Let me introduce our distinguished panelists. They are Ms. Teresa and Dr. Amond. And before we start this panel discussion, I would like to welcome every one of you, and I would wish everybody to just put your name in the comment box and then let us know where you are from. And throughout the session, just feel free to put your questions or comments in the comment box. And your questions and comments will be answered or will be read out in the session. Okay, are you all ready for it? Okay, very nice. So we would love to have a brief introduction for our panelists today. So we have Dr. Amond and Ms. Teresa. Which one would like to go first? Maybe Ms. Teresa, you would like to go first? Just introduce yourself.
Let's break the ice. So thank you so much for having me here and giving me this opportunity to speak and to share my knowledge and experience with the people around and with this lovely audience. I am a lawyer practicing in the capital of India. I have had experience for like more than 5 years now across various courtroom experiences and advising commercial entities, body corporates on how to build and scale themselves legally. So that's that.
Thank you, Ms. Teresa. Thank you, our lawyer. And then Dr. Amond, your turn to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Rita, for having this platform and inviting all of us together from all parts of the world. It gives me immense pleasure to be part of Asia HRM and to share my knowledge, my experience, and my understanding for my domain. So, first of all, good morning from India. My name is Dr. Amond Siddiqui, and I'm an assistant professor by profession. Currently, I'm working with Lloyd Business Institute, where I teach human resource management subjects. Academically, I am PhD in commerce, and I have qualified NET JRF and a gold medalist from Banaras Hindu University. And my academic journey has always been driven by strong passion for research, teaching, and creating meaningful learning experience for my students. So as far as my relation beyond teachings are concerned, I'm fortunate enough to represent India as an international Penella ambassador for Research Institute in Indonesia. And I continuously contribute to global academic communities as speaker, as session chairs, and as reviewers at various international forums. And for me, education is not about just providing the degree, but about the transformation of a self. It is about inspiring the critical thinking. It is about encouraging innovation and preparing the learners to thrive in an ever-evolving world. With this, I would put a pause to my introduction, and I would love to go ahead with the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Amond, for the very nice introduction, and also thank you, as lawyer, Teresa, for the nice introduction as well. Okay, I hope we have some attendees from India today. Okay, let's start with our first question. So So we would love to hear something from the legal expert. Okay, Ms. Trisa, here comes the question. Okay, organizations often equate governance with compliance. From a legal standpoint, where does compliance end and governance begin? Ms. Trisa.
See, if we see the question, the answer is there in the question itself. The sentence says that the governance, like organizations, often equate governance with compliance. That conflation itself speaks a lot about how we have adopted and wrapped our minds around these two words. Compliance is more of a retrospective thing. Okay. So whenever you talk about scaling or whenever you talk about building, in fact, an organization, the questions of compliances are more of a retrospective thing. Like, have we done this? Is it done? Is it as per the law? Is it completed? However, if we talk about governance, governance is basically a mechanism, or if we let's see it like in architecture, okay, that confirms that what if we miss it out, how could we identify on what we have missed? Okay, so governance is a procedure, you could say. It is not a checklist that yes, this is done, and it's not a checkbox thing. It is a mechanism where you can see and identify that what has not been done. And in case the compliances are all complied with and we have followed everything word by word, would we have any mechanism to prove it? That is governance. So you can say that compliance is more of a substantive thing that exists in an organization, and governance is more of a procedural format to ensure whether the compliance has been done right. And if yes, could you survive the question, whether the organization as such could survive the question of how have you complied it with. So I think they are intertwined, but as far as the nature is concerned, compliance is more of a substantive thing in an organization, and governance is the procedure monitoring it.
May I say that governance actually is much broader for compliance? Compliance part of it. May I say so? Teresa, you're on mute.
Yes. I think that would be very right to say that governance is the procedure of ensuring whether it has been done or not. Governance is also the procedure to find out why something has not been done, what caused the delay, or what caused the skip of that particular compliance. If you have a certain foolproof mechanism to monitor the compliances, or some organizations, they keep a record of what compliances, if they scale more than their, like, it depends on pecuniary and monetary scaling as well, that if this scale is crossed, okay, we need to change the nature of the organization, we need to change the what do we say, or we need to pull in more finances. Okay, so what is the next compliance? That this it's a roadmap, it's a trajectory that gets followed by organizations. That's how I think that's how we could differentiate between compliance and governance.
Okay, so governance is more about the roadmap, right, that the organization have to follow, and compliance more about the procedure, whether this has been followed. Some of the decision-making process is clearly stipulated in the policy and even in the procedure. Okay, got you. Thank you so much, Ms. Risa. So we have a question for Dr. Amen. Let's see. Okay, Dr. Amen. Some people describe
Yes.
as a trust mechanism rather than a control mechanism. What does it mean in practice? Control mechanism versus trust mechanism.
Thank you, Rita, for such a nice question. If I relate this question with the organizational behavior or the human resource management, so I would say the governance has now shifted from being controlled to being trust mechanism. Why? Because the kind of generation we are dealing with, the basic Gen Z generation which we are dealing with, they have no more regrets for the consequences, but they are sustainable, they are more resilient to something which they can trust, which they can hold upon in a longer period of time. So when we talk about a traditional approach, traditionally the governance always focused on preventing mistakes rather than having any kind of resistance relating to fairness or transparency. But now, when we talk about governance, it is more of a transparency, it is more of the mechanism which builds more trust and reliability among people rather than having a control. So employees are expected to stay committed, not to those organizations who control their or to exercise their governance in form of punishment, but yes, the government or the governance, anything which they are going to have, that should be related to something which is more transparent, something which is more fair, and something which is more engaging, something with builds the trust of the community, and which would be more sustainable and will be more promising in the near future. So yes, according to me, the governance has now shifted from the concept of a control mechanism to that of the trust mechanism, because this is how our generation feels that sustainability can be achieved, and governance to give it a more positive impact rather than having that negative view for governance, shift the negative view of governance from to be a positive one.
Okay. So what you are saying is that maybe control mechanism. This is not good, right? Is that right to say?
See, as far as we talk about the control mechanism, control is good up to a certain extent. But if that exceeds that certain limit, then of course your employees are going to be outraged, they are going to be violent, they are not going to stay in your organization. So, according to me, the governance has to be something which is a promise, which is a trust for the employees, which is something which binds them with the organization in a positive manner.
Okay, got you. Okay, but if we have to move from a control mechanism to a trust mechanism, what can we do? Dr. Amen, could you hear me?
Yes.
So my next
Can you please
question,
pardon your question?
my follow-up question is that if we have to move from a control mechanism to a trust mechanism, how does it work?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
See, the trust mechanism.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear my follow-up question?
Yes.
Okay, so if we have to move from a control mechanism to trust mechanism, how does it work? What can we do?
Okay. How can we do that, right?
Yeah, right.
See, trust mechanism, I think that has achieved something with your existence. A new company won't be able to establish that kind of trust which an already existing company which has been there into the existing player for the last 5 decades. So yes, trust is something which is sustained with a longer period of time. But yes, that also requires transparency, that requires fairness, that requires responsibility, and of course the accountability. So for I think these are the various components, not only in a professional font, if you see, but also on a personal font. We can build trust with these components. So any organization who are exercising these 4 components, they are more into building trust with their employees as compared to that of their counterparts.
Okay, got you. So from control to trust, right? I think a lot of time we have to see if this is with the support of the management. I think management support is also very important. If somehow the bosses are very autocratic, it's very difficult from a control mechanism to move from a control mechanism to a trust mechanism, unless we can prove to the boss that with a trust mechanism, we can do a lot of that. Yeah, so I think this is something that we also have to look at. Thank you, Dr. Aman, for the insights. So next we have a question
Thank you.
for Teresa. Yeah. So let me take a look at the question here. Show the question. Okay. With AI, right now we are now in the AI era. A lot of organization actually is working on AI, using AI, or they're learning to use AI. So with AI becoming part of recruitment, performance management, and even employee monitoring, what legal risks should HR leaders be preparing for today?
That's an interesting question. Like with AI into the picture, things change and things change fast. AI delivers quickly, and the accountability is still a question because, again, there are prompts given, there are automations there, and even the trust thing becomes weak in the organizations when you rely mostly on AI. That's one question. That's one thing. So there are, like, if I take the question as it is, there are 3 distinct sequential things that are being asked here. One is recruitment. The second is that I see is performance management. And third is employee monitoring. Now, with recruitment in picture, as far as the recruitment process is concerned, we see that there are algorithmic screening tools. AI is trained and modeled like what resume is fit, even without assessing the candidate in person or even without having a consideration about the candidate. Without meeting, we see a paper and the organizations decide whether the person is fit for the job, whether the person is fit to dispose the role or not. The legal exposure here is not direct, but it is indirect discrimination. As I said, that like naturally you are seeing a high volume document and you're screening based on automation. So there is a possibility of indirect discrimination that arises. For example, suppose a candidate being favored, all right, from particular institutions, or a candidate with certain gaps in his or her employment history, okay, will automatically be filtered. So these are the things where we might miss out on very legitimate and crucial talent that way. If the screening is solely based on the AI automation. I understand that organizations have to go through a lot of high volume CVs and applications. Yet, I see this thing as a problem that this is a major legal risk of indirect discrimination in the recruitment part that I see. Another thing is that organization would still be, despite using the AI, the process of governance, as I said, that it is not, it is a procedure that keeps the compliance in check. You can automate an AI, giving it, training it with the prompts that these are the things, these are the criteria that I want my employee to be on. These are the characteristics that I want in a person, in a certain employee that should be there, right? But the accountability still lies on the person and not the AI. So that is a major risk that I see as far as the recruitment process is concerned. Talking about performance management here. So human work, human caliber being rated or being graded by AI generated performance ratings or AI generated productivity scores. It is too statistical, too mechanical, so as to say. Because there has to be, when you are training an agent, I think that's the language the technicals use, that when you're training an agent, the productivity scores that you feed, it is based on your one single person who has trained, or maybe some AIs, the models that are being developed, they hire people to train the AI so that it could perform efficiently and better and without lagging and without hallucinations, we see. But if an employee's capabilities, if a person's potential, see, everybody learns by doing. We are living in an era that the circumstances are such that everybody is into this phase of learning by doing, right? I think most of the organizations would agree that they would try something. So I think AI is snatching away this opportunity of people who might be dependent on organizations to learn by doing. All right. That thing is absent. So if an employee is rating the eligibility, the potential, and even the promotion prospects are being judged by an automated system, I think that's where the organization would lack trust. And in the long run, I would not say that there are less of people in the world all of a sudden, okay, who would let go of the opportunity, but the organization would face a risk here in a manner that, there is no accountability on a person. It is an AI automation system. But Dr. Rahman, while answering her first question, she talked about trust and accountability. That trust in the organization will be lost. When the trust is lost, it would be very difficult for an organization to run in the long run, to maintain itself. Okay, I think that's one thing that I see as a challenge as far as the performance management is concerned. And another thing is that when you judge a person or when you assess an employee's performance based on automation and AI tools, what happens is the relationship. See, every trust is something that you place in someone. It's a commodity. It's like Bitcoin, you could say. You place in somebody so that you could grow together, you could learn together. If that is based on AI and automation solely, I would say it is going to be very hard and fast rule. We would need more rules in the world that owing to the accountability of that judgment, that particular judgment that has been passed against or in the favor of any person, there would be again accusations of, I would say, discrimination or faulty judgment would come. And explaining it functionally for the organization, if we talk in those terms, how do you explain it functionally? That would be a very difficult job as far as the performance management is concerned. Coming to the third segment of this question, which is employee monitoring. Now, we talked about building trust, right? Keystroke tracking, sentiment analysis, and why the person is performing. Somebody could be performing or underperforming owing to several reasons. Here we are talking about where there are remote jobs being offered across the international borders, okay? And somebody might be fit for someone while not being physically present. So in that case, if the performance is not even AI, if it is too mechanical, so as to say, if it just runs on email threads and traffic, if it just runs on the internal software chat system, I think that will also be, and with the privacy laws in the picture, with the data privacy thing, that would be an answerability of the organization. That how are you tracking? What are the mechanism? I would say the same thing, that for monitoring, if we are solely dependent upon the automations of some software, I think the question is that who owns the accountability of the privacy breach that might happen? Somebody might complain of it, and the automated analysis or tracking, or maybe the default in the AI software itself. Who is going to be accountable? The organizations would need to find an answer for that. And I guess that's where governance comes into play, because all of this stages for an organization, I think they are compliances. They are compliance checklist. For governance oriented, we need to know that who owns it, who takes the risk, and who would be responsible just in case there is, suppose, a senior like a junior complaining against a senior that under maybe harassment laws. Okay. So in India, we have here POSH, okay, prevention of sexual harassment at workplace. So how would you track it? Because it is completely automated. So I think those are the risks that we see here with AI becoming part of hiring process and human resource management. And one question again that organization should be prepared is that who has the accountability?
Thank you, Ms. Teresa, for your insights. I really love your point of accountability, right? No matter we are doing this using AI for recruitment or performance management, even employee monitoring, the ultimate responsibility goes to human, but not AI. Because I heard of the story that company seems to rely on AI a lot, so in the end, AI seems to be the decision maker, but not human beings. But something very interesting that I heard from you about employee monitoring, because you mentioned that there might be a risk of infringing employee privacy, when they are trying to track down the whereabouts of employees. Is this something that not allowed by the law, by the employment law or the relevant law in India? because I like in Hong Kong, right? During office hours, employers actually have the right to know where the employee is performing their job. Otherwise, how could they guarantee their productivity or whether they are at work? So is this something not allowed in India?
See, as I said, that across various organizations, it differs. Now, one single say that I could say is that digital data, personalized data, is not to be infringed with. But if there is an agreement between two parties that you are going to perform the work for me, and this party is going to keep a track of it. And for the purposes of this particular agreement, there are some rules set out that I need to know that what is your workplace like? Is it undisturbed or not? Because you are an employee and you will be performing the job of an organization. So if it is set out clearly in the terms, I think that would be abided by. But in general, so as to say, any person cannot keep any personal data, and personal data defines as by any data through which somebody could identify a person. That is personal data in India. So, and even like sometimes what happens is when the employees are resigning, when they leave, what happens is that they ask through emails that may this data be deleted, because the organization plays a role of data fiduciary, and the person giving the data is the data principal. So yeah, that's how it plays out in India.
Understand. Okay, that's interesting to learn that for leavers in India, they might ask the company to remove the data, right, from the database of the company. Okay, so I think in other part of the world, I think there is some sort of the consent given by the employee that their private data will only be used for private purposes. So if it's used for other purposes, of course, it's not allowed. Okay, thank you so much, Teresa, for the insights. Yeah, we have a question from our audience today. Let me show you the question. What are 3 governance practices every organization, regardless of their sizes, should implement today? 3 governance practices every organization should practice. Who would love to answer? Dr. Eamon?
Yes. May I have the question? The question is, what is the governance practices every organization should implement today? See, taking or in continuation to what lawyer said, see, the AI is becoming, like, you cannot function without AI, but you cannot even solely depend on AI. Okay, so you have to find something which meets the middle path, so that you are not having a complete reliance on AI. Not only you are working without AI, because something which is already in the mechanism, you cannot take it off that all of a sudden, right? So one thing which I think every organization should have is the human touch. Why I am mentioning human touch is, always, as Advocate Trisha said, that somebody has to be there to take the accountability. AI is not going to take the accountability. For example, if I am presenting a data, if I'm presenting a report, everything or every work has been done by AI. I'm not going to tell my manager, or I'm not going to tell my boss, no, AI has done this work. AI is going to be they have to take the accountability. Definitely no, because whose salary is going to be affected? My salary. Whose recognition is going to be affected? My recognition. AI is already recognized. AI is already making billions and trillions in a single minute. So it is humans who have to take the accountability of any automation which is being done. But one thing I'm sure that AI is definitely not going to replace people, but it is definitely and for sure going to replace people who don't know how to use AI. So my talk on this thing is that AI is something which every organization should implement, but definitely not without the human touch. First, then second takeaway is your transparency and fairness. This policy or these policies should be always be there in the organization. Unless and until it happens, the accountability will keep on shifting from one shoulder to another, and the credit snatchers are here. Credit accountable, and there has to be a mechanism of transparency and fairness.
Mhm. Okay, very nice. So when we use AI, right, we need to, at the end of the day, accountability goes to humans, not AI. And then Dr. Amen further talk about the transparency, fairness of the policies and procedures, right? Okay, okay, very nice. So let's move on to the next question. Okay, let me take a look. Okay. So again, this question is for Dr. Amen. Why should boards, right, the board of directors, treat organizational culture as a strategic priority? Because a lot of people say that, oh, we should treat
So now,
as a priority. Why? Why should we do that? Why should the board? Yeah.
okay, now this organizational culture has been my favorite topic, not only in my academics, but also it is very dear to me. Why? Because this is the same topic as that of my PhD. So organizational culture, I think anywhere you see organizational culture, unless and until you identify or a business identifies the culture in which they have to function, I don't think so that it would be a strategic move to not to identify the culture of the community where they are going to serve their business or where they are going to function their business. For example, if you see Japan, right? Japan or China, maybe you have a different set of market, you have different set of people who are catering to different set of requirements. In India, if we talk about, we have a different set of requirement, we have extreme demographic profile for our people. Same context, if you talk about the Middle East, we have different likings, we have got different dislikes. Very small sell out something in Middle East. Okay, so there my advertisement, it is not going to be from left to right, it is going to be from right to left. So I need to frame my advertisement in such a manner so that they are able to read from right to left, rather than as an Indian advertisement which says that you read from left to right. Okay, so I think it should be one of the priorities. It should be one of the pivotal point which every organization should work upon, is the study of the organizational culture they have to work from. Because not only from the employer's point of view, but also from the customer's point of view, this is very important. So any culture which increases the attrition rate or which weakens the collaboration and which impacts the financial performance of the business should be closely or should be completely shut down. Whereas such culture which promotes enthusiasm, such culture which promotes brotherhood, which promotes fraternity among people, that should be instilled within the organization. So the governance will help you to provide this, to study the ethnical culture of the organization, to study the culture where the business is going to operate. So it is important that people should think over why organizational culture or the study on organizational culture is important. Why? Because this is going to be a framework for your next decades. It is going to be your pathway for the next decades. So yes, organizational culture, to conclude, we have to say that it is very important. And of course, unless and until you understand your culture, you understand where you are going to operate, how people are going to respond to your advertisement, how they are going to respond to the products you will be selling. It is very important that we have to have a prior knowledge of the culture where we have to operate.
Thank you, Dr. Amen. Then I have a follow-up question for you. How are we going to convince the CEO of our organization that organizational culture is our number one priority, or should be our strategic priority? How are we going to convince our boss of the company?
For any businessman, if you talk in monetary language, they would be easily convinced. So if we talk in terms of the financial burden they are going to face if they operate in a culture where their product won't be suitable. So definitely, I think if we talk in monetary terms, like we'll be bearing loss or we won't be having that profit as that anticipated. So I think it would be very easy to convince. Secondly, I think sustainability and longer term perspective, if these points we can touch upon, these 2 points are also going to be very helpful in convincing the management, in convincing the BODs that how important it is to study the culture. How important it is to study the people you are going to sell your products to, or how important it is going to help your organization to decide various like pricing strategies, the operation strategies, the marketing strategies. So I think these are the 4 to 5 points, especially the monetary language. If we talk about it, would be very easy for anybody or to their immediate supervisors or to their immediate juniors to convince the CEO of any company.
Okay, so Dr. Amen, you mentioned about money and also sustainability, right? So I understand that if we are able to communicate with the CEO in monetary terms, it will make a lot of things easy. But how does the money and culture link with each other? How is it linked with each other? Can you just give us an example?
Like, for example, if we say there are 5 range of a product, okay? For example, mobile phones, right? So mobile phones, they come from Indian rupees. If I talk about, they come for 25,000. Also, they come for 70,000 as well. But if you are going to sell your 70,000 mobile phone to some that area not able to make even 50,000 per month, so that won't be an appropriate market for that 70,000 product. But that same 70,000 product, if it is being sold to some elite class locality or if it is being sold to some high class society, then the market would flourish like anything. Okay, so I think this is something which should be studied before the business starts to function. So I think a very quick example for this we can take for mobile phone, like I mentioned before.
Hi, Dr. Amen, you still here? Can't hear you.
Has the question been retrieved well? Yeah.
Are you giving an example now? Because we can't hear you.
Yes, hello? I'm saying, has my question been retrieved well? Hello?
Yeah, you are trying to give an example,
yeah.
Right? Would you mind?
Am I audible?
Example? Yeah, you are. Can you give us an example again?
Okay, I think that was not retrieved well. Okay, I'll do that once again. See, for example, if we talk about the income profile of our people who are residing in an area. So if we are selling a mobile phone which is of 70,000 rupees in Indian rupees and something which is for 25,000 rupees. So if you study the culture, if you study the demographic profile of the people, the income profile of the people, so the 70,000 mobile phone is not going to be that beneficial to them as compared to as 25,000 rupees. Why? Because that is meeting their budget, that is meeting their income status. Whereas 70,000 mobile phone, if you shift that market to some elite class or to some high income societies, so 70,000 mobile phone is going to be a best fit for such societies. So I think this very example sorts the question well, that why is it important to study the culture? Like, why is it important to study the demographic profile before setting up of the business? Because if that business is not going to flourish, impact the financial performance of the company. So this proves that organizational culture, the demographic profile is very important. You sell something which is not for, which is prohibited in your culture. So that same market is going to have will face a downfall, whereas the same product which is acceptable in another culture, that is going to flourish in the market.
Okay, so you're talking about market positioning on your your target customers, whether your target customers is at the middle class or upper class or the lower class. Okay. But what we are referring about the organizational culture of your own. But anyway, thank you so much for the insights. Thank you. Okay, Trisa, your turn. Many multinational organizations struggle with different labor laws across countries. From your experience, what is your advice for maintaining governance without violating local legislations or local regulations? Trisa.
Okay, that's some good question that would require some experience. So basically, how to maintain governance without infringing upon the local regulations. Is that the question?
Yes, correct.
See, talking about like HR leaders, they are surrounded by laws as such. There is employment law, there is data privacy laws, and then with AI into picture, there are AI regulations as well. So amidst all of this, how are we going to segregate and how to not infringe upon any of the local regulations? With AI crossing borders, with AI tools crossing borders, each jurisdiction maintains and develops its own governance instrument. Right. So the framework I would suggest for the multinational clients would be that use this theory called global spine, local limbs. Now, spine is small. The limbs are something that is functional. So if you have to take anything, you'll use your hands. You want to walk some distance, you'll use your legs, right? So there should be a non-negotiable set of principles for the organization's headquarters. That's one. Absolutely non-negotiable, may be put into contractual terms so that you do not infringe upon. If the person agrees, if the employees agree, like something as simple as performing, like somebody being in India, being hired by a tax law firm in USA. the timings would be different. The timings won't match. When it's day here, there would be night. When it's night there in USA, here it would be day. So simply putting it into the contractual terms, some set of principle which has to be non-negotiable. If somebody voluntarily wants to be a part of that organization as an employee, as a staff, or at any level of, or at any grades of employee, that needs to be there for the multinational clients. Okay, even here, like even as a body corporate, when somebody says open a branch in Thailand for the textile industry, or they open or they sell in Bali, that's where like the contract has to be very rigid and fixed, and consent architecture has to be very, very strong there. So it should be consensual, it should be non-negotiable, and in general, let those principles be humane, so as to say. You need to come to a common ground that if you want this for your organizations, what are you delivering as a consideration to the employee? That needs to be very, very clear. So that is one thing I would suggest. Second thing, an anti-discrimination. Like Dr. Ammon, she very well spoke about the cultural part. Okay. So second thing is that you should know the culture. Culture is going to be the currency of any successful organization, right? So an anti-discrimination, it should be a commitment. There should be no laws, no regulations, no principles regarding that. If you make a commitment, you follow it, you keep it at any cost, right? So second thing would be that commitment. And we talked about trust, right? So we could say that any organization, if any internal thing is going on, you should be able to resolve it internally first. And that is only possible if trust is there, right? So any grievances should be addressed, and not addressed as a formality, addressed to seek resolution or to remedy the person who has been aggrieved. So I think these are few. So if anything goes wrong, and if anybody is speaking regarding any sort of discrimination or any sort of infringement that the person or the employee might feel, there should also be a whistleblower protection, so as to say that who is answerable, who is responsible, who do you need to report to. Clear mechanism should be set out. And then, of course, last but not the least, throughout this procedure, throughout when you have this non-negotiable principle that you put into, like you put it like terms of the agreement or the contract with your employee, the anti-discrimination commitment, the whistleblower protection that I talked about, that, and the ability to solve anything internally first. Okay, that is only possible when the employee trusts you. So all of these things goes by a single thread of ethics, I would say. No ethic compromise. Yeah, that's that. I think that would do. So you should keep your limbs fine. The spine would be straight.
Okay, so Ms. Teresa, you mentioned global sites and local limbs, right? Okay. You mentioned about commitment to anti-discrimination, and also
discrimination, yeah.
Yeah, and also we need to have the whistleblowing protection, and it's all related to ethics, and also we all need to work on the culture and build a trust, cultural trust in organization, so that everything will be in a strong compliance manner. Okay, thank you so much. And so we still have 7 minutes. Maybe we can have one more question for Dr. Ammon before we have the closing session. We start the closing. remarks. Okay, Dr. Amen. Okay, so basically at this point, okay, we choose another one. Okay, so as organizations increasingly rely on AI, what should be the role of human leadership in governance? Okay, Amen.
Okay, so thank you for this very burning topic for introducing this AI in our questions. So I think artificial intelligence is something which goes in hand with the company. Okay, so any organization, whether too big or the growing ones, they have to, for some or the other thing, they have to rely on automation. So I hope I agree on this to all of us. But something which cannot replace the human is your empathy, is your leadership, right? Is your motivation, is your trust, is your accountability, and how you deliver a particular context. So, likewise, I mentioned in my previous talk that any automation is incomplete without the human touch, because there has to be somebody who has to take ownership of that work. So technology should enhance human judgment, not just replace the human beings. So I think AI can process information faster, but it cannot, as I mentioned, it cannot exclude empathy, it cannot exclude your ethical reasoning, it cannot eradicate the contextual judgment which humans are better to take upon. So the future right now, or the challenge which we have to face is that how well are we going to use the AI? How well are we going to use the concept of AI? Because AI is something which you cannot function without, but at the same time, you cannot replace humans. Okay, like I mentioned that AI is not going to replace human, it is going to replace only those human who have no idea of how to use AI. So I think the accountability still lies in humans, the judgment still lies with human, the criticism, it still lies with human, the pain to protect one's honor, it still lies with human. So AI is something human leadership should always rely upon. They should firstly rely on how much or how are they going to use AI. There are so many fake things floating in the market, in parallel universe, and they all are AI generated. Like you see videos, you see audios, you see photos, even you see the reports. So there has to be a human touch in everywhere. Human touch should always be prevailing in any organization, whether big or small. So the responsible leader should ensure that technology remains aligned with the human values and the organizational purpose. It will never completely eradicate the humans, but will definitely flush out those employees or flush out those humans who have no access to AI or who have no idea about how to use AI in a better way and a prospective way.
Very nice. Accountability is the key, right? While we are using AI, we still need to have the human touch. Thank you so much. And here comes the last part of the session today. To both panelists, in one sentence, what is the single most important message you would like every child leader to take away from today's discussion? One single important message you would like the audience to take away from today's session?
I think one single important message I would suggest it like a regulatory procedure coming from a lawyer that every organization should take. Whenever you use AI for any of the stages, whether recruitment, whether performance management, or even while assessing someone's performance, I think go by these three tests: that who is it going to affect, how is it going to affect,
And if in case, suppose a risk comes that is being affected negatively, that somebody is affected negatively, or not in the best of the favor, if the thing doesn't go in the best of the favor of an employee, who by name and by designation would be responsible for such an act? So these three checks, I think, should be there.
Okay, who will be affected?
Right.
How are we going to be affected, and who is
Who would be affected? How? What is the extent of effect and the impact being caused? And who shall be liable? These three things are major key points that any organization before hiring, while keeping somebody employed, should answer for itself to avoid further legal risk and even escalation of disputes also.
Okay, thank you so much to let us know that we need to ask these three questions. How about Dr. Amen?
Okay, so for the wrapping up remark, I would say that governance, how we shift the image of governance from being negative, from being the control mechanism to the trust mechanism, is something which we should work upon. And governance should not only create a control mechanism but a trust mechanism which sustains the employees, which sustains the business, which sustains the profit and the market, and not merely enforcing the compliances, not merely pushing the people to work harder and harder, but to give a promising future to them, to give a promise or to deliver the promise that yes, they are being heard rather than they are being controlled. So this is all from my end.
Thank you so much to move governance from control to trust for the organizational sustainability, and also promising a rosy picture for the employee. Very, very nice. Thank you so much. As we wrap up, I want to leave everyone with this thought. Okay, so I would love to leave everybody with this thought. Governance is not about control. It's about enabling sustainable performance by fostering a trust environment and also the trust culture. It is the foundation of trust, talent, and long-term growth. In a world shaped by AI, global mobility, and rising expectations from employees and regulators, governance becomes the anchor that keeps organizations resilient, fair, and future-ready. Thank you to our panelists today. Thank you to our supporting partner, HRM Asia, and thank you to everyone joining us live today. If you found this session valuable, feel free to connect, share your reflections, or continue the conversation with us on LinkedIn. Have a wonderful afternoon and see you all in our next session. Thank you so much. Thank you. See you next Wednesday.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.